Throughout our whole schooling life, we were always told to study, but we were never actually taught how to study effectively. And this just results in all of us going down the same beaten path, having to work twice as hard to get the same results. So over the last 7 years of my university studies, I feel that I have learnt some of the best evidence-based ways to study, while also having experience with some of the study methods that we should be avoiding. So today, I want to outline the 5 most common, least effective study methods that students, including myself, have used over the years. I'm going to talk about why we shouldn't use them and how we can replace them with better methods so that we can study more effectively and be more efficient with our time. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I hope you are doing really well today. My name's Harry and I'm an aspiring medical student in Australia, currently studying to become a paramedic at the end of the year. Today, as I just mentioned, I want to talk about the 5 least effective ways that most students will study for their exams. So we're going to talk a little bit about why these study methods aren't effective. We're then going to touch on why these are so popular. We'll then start to talk about how we can replace these with more effective study methods utilizing active learning. And then I'm going to talk about my experience in using all of these study methods and how my whole study strategy or my study regime has changed to entirely incorporate only active learning. So let's get started. All right, so right from the start, the 5 least effective, most common study methods that students use tend to be summarizing, highlighting, reading, which is either reading from the textbook or rereading your notes, listening, so that's just sitting and listening to somebody in a lecture and just kind of absorbing it that way, and then YouTube videos. Quick little disclaimer as well, I'm not ruling out these study methods entirely. I understand that they all have their merits and they all have their advantages when used appropriately. Just for the purposes of this video, I just wanted to talk about some of the best high yield methods that we can use to get the most out of our studies so that we are studying the most effectively with the end result of being able to study less while earning the same, if not better grades. So the reason why these techniques aren't that great and they don't perform as well as we'd like is because they're all forms of passive learning. So basically, passive learning is when we receive the information and internalize it, but we don't conceptualize the info to the broader topic so that we can further our understanding on what we've just learned. So if we're only using these passive forms of learning, it means that we are unable to remember the information long term because we haven't worked to build up a strong understanding of the topic. And this then results in us in having to go over all of this information week after week after week, and it just becomes tedious and we just end up wasting so much time on going over information that we should already know, which is why our solution to this problem is active learning, and that's something that I'll touch on further on in the video. So the reason why I think all of these methods are so popular and why as we grow up, we just all kind of veer into this lane of summarizing and highlighting and rereading is because they're easy. And without a proper roadmap to the most effective methods, we just end up following suit with those that came before us. Because it's pretty easy to be sitting there trying to figure out how to study best for the first time and realize that there's people older than you who are doing really good on their exams and they're writing out all these notes and they're highlighting them all, and you go, wow, if they're doing really well using those methods, maybe I should do that as well. And then you start and realize, wow, this isn't that hard. This is pretty easy. It's time consuming and it feels like I'm getting a lot of work done. So it must be quite beneficial to be using. There was a study that was undertaken a few years back in Washington, and it quizzed a bunch of students in the area on what study methods they used. And the results from that were that 4 out of the 5 most common study methods that these students used were all deemed to be methods of low utility. And these 5 methods were rereading, highlighting, summarizing and outlining, taking notes, and then the one high utility one was flashcards. And the problem with these methods is that they're really good at making us feel productive. Our studying starts to become outcome-based study, where we start to measure how productive we've been based on the tangible results that we have achieved throughout the day. Because we've all been in the situation where we've been smashing out notes all day and we've done like 5-10 pages of notes, something crazy, and we look back on it after those few hours and go, wow, I got so much done today. Look at all of these notes, or look at how colorful my pages are because I spent an hour and a half highlighting all of my notes from yesterday. Like, wow, what a great day. But this is dangerous. And it's dangerous because we start to mistake these actual tangible cues as actual learning and comprehension of the content. This then starts to build upon itself and it becomes a positive feedback loop because we go to bed, we wake up the next day, we look at all the notes we got done the day before and go, wow, I got so much done yesterday. It was such a productive day. I'm gonna do it again. And so we write another 5 to 10 pages of notes. And then the next day we highlight those notes. And then before we know it, we've gone through the whole semester of writing out notes and highlighting and making our books look really, really pretty. And then come exam time, we've realized that we haven't actually learned anything. And then it results in us having to cram for like a week or 2 weeks before the exams anyway. Now at face value, this doesn't actually seem like such a bad way to measure our work done throughout the day. Like, obviously we're going to have some amount of tangible assets that we can look at after a day of studying and be like, great, I got some work done. That's true. But the important thing is not the numbers themselves, but it's how we actually get to the numbers in the first place. So the question that then comes to mind now is, how do we focus less on the outcomes and more on the actual learning process that focuses on using the best study methods we can while optimizing for comprehension and understanding of the topic? Well, that's where active learning comes into play. Now, active learning is pretty special because it involves actually testing yourself on the topic as a form of study. Now, active learning is usually paired with something called spaced repetition, which is just spacing out the times between each study. I've made videos on both of these concepts going into a lot more detail, so feel free to go check them out after this video if you want. So through using active learning methods, we're able to build a stronger association and understanding of the topic through associating cues with our own stored knowledge. So the way we want to utilize active learning is all the standard methods. We want to do something like use mind maps. You can then use things like flashcards, past papers. You can try and teach other people. These are all great ways to use active learning to help really facilitate your understanding of the topic. Now, this actually helps us to move away from those outcomes-based methods of studying because it forces us to focus more on the actual learning experience and the actual ways that we understand and grasp new information. So the next time you're sitting down to study, try and have a think about how you can alter your methods to incorporate more active learning and more active retrieval of the information, because this is what's going to allow you to be able to understand the topics more effectively, and then down the track, as you start to use it more and more and more, you'll get better and better at it, and you'll be able to study for less time because you learn the content that much quicker. For the whole of my first degree, which was a Bachelor of Biomedical Science, I used nothing but low utility methods. For the whole degree, I would summarize notes from the lecture slides into my book, and I would just reread them constantly. I would highlight them, and then I would occasionally rewrite them from memory, which was actually a pretty good use of active learning, even though I didn't know it at the time. But the majority of my time, I was simply writing notes. All I did was just write from the lecture notes every single day. And I just seemed to think that if I kept putting in this work, and if I kept working hard and spending all of these countless hours in the library, that eventually the results will come. And they didn't. And I did them because they were easy. I did them because I didn't know any better, without realizing that it's not the quantity of the work that we're getting done, but it's the actual quality of what we're doing. There's this really nice quote from Grit by Angela Duckworth that I think sums this up perfectly. And she states that without effort, your talent is just unmet potential. And I think this does a really good job of highlighting the contrast between active learning and passive learning, because even though using active learning, especially in the beginning, is harder and it takes a while to kind of figure it all out and get into a bit of a groove and start to build some momentum with the method, overall, it is well and truly worth it. So now in my second degree, which is a Bachelor of Paramedicine, after having learnt about active learning and realizing how beneficial and how much better of a study method it is, I've used that my whole degree. And because of the time I've put into building up my understanding of active learning and how to use it most effectively, I'm now studying less. Not only am I studying less, but I also feel like I have a much more profound understanding of the topics that we're getting taught. I'm also remembering things for so much longer than I would have, which is directly related to my increased understanding of the topic, which overall comes to the result of me getting better grades throughout the whole degree. But really, at the end of the day, I'm not advocating for you to stop using these study methods entirely and just cut them out of your life. Now, I'm not trying to tell you how to study, because I know that these are great methods to use if they're used appropriately when studying. Because really, you do you, boo. If you're absolutely acing it with all of your highlighting and rereading and summarizing and watching YouTube videos, then don't change a thing. You don't have to listen to me. I'm just making these videos so that the next time you study, you can at least have these in the back of your mind and think about these principles for if you want to use them. Make sure to hit that like button, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because I really appreciate it and it goes a long way to support the channel. Leave a comment down below about any of the study methods that you usually use, or anything at all really, and I'll definitely give it a look. And until next time, look after yourselves and I'll see you later.